Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So, starting tomorrow, Oregon is going to go into another 2-week lockdown. 2 weeks of no dine-in, at the restaurants, no gatherings of, whatever small number of people. Going into lockdown for 2 weeks. And I got to thinking about this, and I was like, why is it just 2 weeks? 2 weeks seems like a very short amount of time. I figured they just didn't want anybody gathering up for the Thanksgiving holiday. And I was talking about it with some of the other guys here at work, and they're like, no, it's because they don't want everybody flipping out that you're going to lock them down for 6 weeks. So you tell them 2 weeks at first, get everybody into a lockdown, and then extend it out to 6 weeks. And I thought, oh man, that makes so much more sense. That makes so much more sense to me than a 2-week lockdown, because 2 weeks doesn't seem like it would do anything. Like, a lot of people don't even realize they have it for a few days. The contagion period is who knows how long. Anyway, 2 weeks just seems like a very short amount of time to try and stifle a virus that is starting to run rampant again. Anyway, thought that was very interesting timing. Also, considering what Janet Yellen, this is Janet Yellen, the former chairman for the Federal Reserve, because she has just recently stated, and I'll leave a link down in the description for you guys, because this was really interesting the way she said this too. She says the Fed has done just about all that they can do. Okay? And now I thought about that for a second, and I was like, no, the Fed can keep printing money. They can keep buying treasuries. They can, do yield curve control. They haven't started that up. And for those of you who don't quite understand yield curve control, this is where they say that, they'll pick, say, the 10-year treasury. And they will say, we will not allow the 10-year treasury to ever exceed more than a 0.5% yield. And they will buy any amount of treasuries and any, however it takes in order to get the yield down to that 0.5%. Okay, that would be yield curve control. Quantitative easing is we're going to buy a certain amount of bonds every month, at this, we're going to buy 6 billion or 60 billion or 120 billion, that's like quantitative easing, where they put a set amount towards it, and that's how much they're going to buy. Yield curve control, it's they may not even need to buy any 1 month, it just might be under 0.5%, they won't need to do anything. But then if it goes over 0.5%, then the Fed would step in and start buying those bonds. That's yield curve control. That would be another tool that they have yet to incorporate into their system here. But I don't think it would do any good anyway, since they already have quantitative easing and they buy up tons of bonds as it is, and lowering interest rates is not going to help this failing economy. And that's where it really starts to come down to, why is it they're locking down now, and what the Fed has been screaming the government to do over the last couple of months, because it has been nonstop, just statement after statement coming from the Federal Reserve about how they need stimulus package coming from the government. And with Janet Yellen saying that the Fed has done pretty much all that they can do, they are counting on the government to do some fiscal stimulus, somehow go into some kind of stimulus package in order to get this economy to continue rolling before you start seeing the defaults and the bankruptcies and everything else kicking in, because the flow of money is not getting out there. And she says that, and Janet Yellen goes on to say that it's a glut of savings. And I think about it, it's who in the world is saving right now? I mean, why would you save? I'm saving, but everybody else seems to not be saving. And there's this attitude about saving is just like a joke because you lose it to inflation and there's no interest on your savings. And so why would there be a glut right now? And I got to thinking about it. It's you can't put your money towards an investment like bonds, a safe haven, because it carries a negative interest rate to it when you consider that it's an inflationary aspect or a deflationary aspect. You buy a bond, and in the future, even the profit that you would make off the bond no longer has the purchasing power as if you had it today. So cash is more valuable today than purchasing a bond into the future. And that when I thought about it like that for a minute, I thought, okay, this is why we're having a glut of savings and why we're having a lack of investment. It's because these interest rates are just simply too low. And so now when they say that the Fed has done just about all they can do, yeah, lowering interest rate isn't going to help. They've already proven that it doesn't help. Countries that are going into negative interest rates in their banking systems are not rocking and rolling in awesome economies right now. Lowering interest rates was something that you could do when the interest rates were higher, and it benefited. By dropping interest rates, it gave the people the ability to go out there and borrow money so they could go off and buy houses and go on vacation and buy cars or whatever. But now when it comes to people investing, there's nothing to invest in a safe haven, because buying into those investments means that you are going to lose money into the future. This is a lot of what Dr. Lacey Hunt was talking about. At least this is the way I'm seeing things going down. And so the Federal Reserve is demanding that the government do something as far as the stimulus package, and there is no better way for an excuse for the government to go off there and dump just tons of money into the economy by just giving people payroll protection programs or stimulus checks or whatever if you're in the middle of a lockdown. See, if you didn't have this lockdown, just take the pandemic away. The economy would still be rolling over right now, and the government would have nothing. If there wasn't a war, if there wasn't a natural disaster, if there wasn't this pandemic, the government would not have anything to go and stimulate the economy with. They would have no reason to do it. But with a pandemic and a lockdown and people suffering and losing their jobs and everything, it gives all the reasoning in the world. It gives the problem, reaction, solution. There's a problem, the government must react. The solution is to dump a bunch of money into it and allowing the Fed to go ahead and do more quantitative easing to buy up those U.S. treasuries, keeping the interest rates low, giving the government the ability to dump that money into the economy and hopefully get spending moving again. That whole thing is eventually going to fail. I mean, you can't do that forever. How many times and how much trickery they can do, I mean, who knows how much they can stretch it out. But that whole scenario and game doesn't work very well. I mean, look at all the money that the Federal Reserve had expanded their balance sheet to. I mean, they almost doubled it, and it lasted 8 months. It's like, it's coming to an end right now. It didn't even go a whole year. That's scary. That is scary stuff coming. And with Oregon, like I said, going into lockdown, Washington lockdown, I think California's doing lockdown. I mean, there's states all over the place, all over the country locking down, and no better excuse for the government to go into more stimulus spending than to have such an event like this taking place at the perfect time too, with the holiday seasons coming up. The people will, that was one of the things that one of the elitists said, and I'm trying to think of who it was, but they said that, when they go to take over like this new world order, the people will be begging for them to do it. And when this pain is from like this lockdown and people are losing their jobs and everything else, I mean, the moratoriums are ending, the forbearances is going to end. This is putting the people into a lot of pain. And then the government can just do whatever they want because the people will just be begging them for them to try. Just anything. Whatever it is that you need to do in order to make this thing right again, do it. That's what the people will say when they put them in enough pain. People ask me all the time, it was just like, gold, you can't eat it. Silver, silver and gold you can't eat. There's no point in having it. It's barbaric metal. Yeah, well, it's outside of their system. I like that. I like the same thing with Bitcoin. People think that Bitcoin is a fraudulent thing, that it's going to go to zero. Really, it's about ready to go up to its new all-time high. I don't think it's going to zero. Doesn't look like it's going to zero. It's going into the future. It's a digital currency. And if you haven't been reading the news, the Federal Reserve and the rest of the central banks around the world are in a scramble to try and figure out a secure digital currency. And with quantum computing coming, it's going to be a difficult task. It's going to be very interesting to see what's going to come from this. Gold and silver may be the only money after that. And you think about it. If the rich are getting into cash, if there's a glut of savings, is it the people that have a glut of savings? Or is this the rich elitists who have a glut of savings? I mean, where's the real problem? There's so much money out there that's been printed. Where's the glut of savings? Is it amongst us, the working class? Are we the ones who have the glut of savings going on? Anyway, I should probably go back to work. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.